For the past 13 years, on the Shabbat closest to Veterans Day, we have set aside an evening to honor our men and women in uniform, those serving and those who have served. Reaching back to the 1940s, when our Women's Auxiliary collected donations and held drives for war relief, and the USO operated a 24-hour canteen out of Wise Hall, just beneath us, Temple Emanu-El has taken great pride in standing with our service women and men and veterans of every faith. And through your generosity to our philanthropic fund, we've contributed not only to the Jewish Welfare Board Jewish Chaplains Council, but also to the West Point Jewish Chapel Fund, which supports the Academy's Jewish cadets and programs and the U.S. Army's wider Jewish community. Tonight, we are truly honored to welcome not just the West Point Jewish Chapel Choir, but two officers, wife and husband, Captains Emma and Oren Abush, joined in the congregation by Oren's mother, our colleague, Rabbi Dr. Ruth Abush Magner, his father, David, and Emma's father, Thomas, and his fiancee, Beth. So our welcome to them. Captain Emanu-El Abush from Worcester, Massachusetts, entered the Army in 2019. She received her bachelor's degree and commissioned from Wellesley College and MIT. She has served in the 82nd Airborne Division as a lieutenant and brigade adjutant. Now she serves the 18th Field Artillery Brigade as current operations officer, fire control officer, and commander. Her overseas tours and combat deployments include Afghanistan and Estonia. Her awards and decorations are many: the Army Commendation Medal, the Army Achievement Medal, the National Defense Service Medal, the Afghanistan Campaign Medal, the Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, the Army Service Ribbon, the Meritorious Unit Citation, the Army Superior Unit Award, Airborne Wings, the Expert Soldier Badge, and the Ranger Tab. Captain Oren Abush is from Atlanta. He graduated from Tufts University with a bachelor's in International Relations and Economics in 2019. While in college, he was a member of the MIT Army ROTC, where he and Emma met. Upon graduation, he immediately commissioned into the Army. Oren has spent his career in airborne infantry and reconnaissance units. He has been married to Emma for 6 years and believes that they are the first Jewish couple ever to both graduate U.S. Army Ranger School. He enjoys spending time with Emma and their two dogs, hiking, exercising, reading, and writing. When he sent me his biography, he humbly wrote, "My bio will not be nearly as long nor as impressive as my wife's." Oren, we don't judge. You are both heroes to us. Dear friends, on this Shabbat before Veterans Day, please welcome first Captain Emma Abush and then Captain Oren Abush.
Sorry. Good evening. Thank you so much, Rabbi, and to everybody here for having me and my husband. It's a great honor. I'd also like to thank my family for being here today. My name is Emma, and tonight I'm going to tell you about one of the most important decisions I have made in my life. Almost 10 years ago, I raised my right hand and pledged to support and defend the Constitution of the United States as I joined the U.S. Army. Over the last decade, many people have asked me, "Emma, why did you join the U.S. Army?" Because for a young Jewish woman, it's not exactly an obvious choice. What I want to tell you about this evening is not why I joined, but why I stayed, and how my life in the U.S. Army reflects our history as Jews, a people who have endured centuries of struggle and persecution, yet continue to display enormous resilience. For many, suffering is a hard concept to truly relate to. Most of us live blessed lives here in America. The majority have never faced starvation, extreme sleep deprivation, or been surrounded by death. Most have never pushed their bodies to failure. Yet as an Army soldier, I have experienced the realities of life. Even this year, I spent my birthday running 42 miles through the Estonian countryside. 6 years ago, on my first deployment, I lived in the Barrett Desert for months. I slept outside in sweltering heat reaching over 110 degrees and worked under starlight. Every day, I would walk over a mile through sand to use the restroom, and for 3 months, I did not see one other woman or any Jews. We had limited food and my body withered away, sunburnt and spent. For many, this experience sounds horrific, yet it connected me to our people's lineage in a way I hadn't imagined. At night, I would stare at the stars, picturing Rachel and Leah moving through the same sand dunes. Their presence guided me. Our lineage gave me strength. In my suffering, I felt closer to my faith, my people, and my God. When I came back from deployment, I thought daily about how I had literally lived a part of our people's past. However, my journey was just beginning. As I gained experience in my new job, I became accustomed to the Army lifestyle. Wake up at 4:40 a.m., work out, train combat skills, and sometimes even jump out of perfectly good airplanes. My life became about stamina, how to sustain working 70 hours every week and spending half the year away from my husband, all while preparing my soldiers for potential combat. What I didn't know is that combat was closer than I ever imagined. On Thursday, 6 August 2021, I was conducting a routine airborne jump at Fort Bragg when my parachute became entangled with another jumper. I fell approximately 100 feet and broke my back. All weekend, I barely moved, surviving on pain medication. That was until I received news that Afghanistan was collapsing. We were deploying within 18 hours. Knowing my soldiers needed me, I boarded the plane. As we circled the Kabul airspace, unable to land because of the deteriorating ground situation, I questioned every decision I had ever made. Why was I here? What had I signed up for? Why me, God? Yet I put aside my own feelings, thoughts, and physical pain, knowing my soldiers needed my leadership. The next few weeks were a blur. As one of very few women on the ground, our team searched all of the women and children that made up the 130,000 evacuees. I experienced the unimaginable persecution of the Afghani civilians fleeing for their lives from the Taliban. I heard their desperate pleas and their horrific screams. No longer was Hannah handing Samuel over to the priest theoretical. Women handed me their babies over the airport fence, knowing that they would never see their child ever again. A mother's love, they entrusted me with their most precious possession. I read my pocket Torah every day, scouring through Lamentations and feeling profoundly its words. Lonely sits the city, once great with people, she that was great among nations, as Kabul fell literally around me. Every day, I arm myself with God's words from Joel. Prepare for battle, arouse the warriors. Let all the fighters come and draw near. Let even the weaklings say, I am strong. Yet, when I came back home, I did not feel strong. Much of life felt hollow. Things I enjoyed seemed frivolous or silly. How could I rejoice in life when others constantly suffered and were persecuted? Then, in 2023, I was given the unique opportunity to go to the annual World War II celebration for Operation Market Garden, where Allied forces jumped into the Netherlands to fight German occupation. While I was there, I met a World War II veteran. He sat by himself, barely able to hear. But when I heard he was Jewish, I went over and immediately introduced myself. Right away, he lit up. He told me about keeping kosher during the war. On a boat, awaiting the D-Day invasion, his superiors became annoyed when he refused to eat dinner because it was treif. He had to explain to them he was not trying to fake illness. In fact, he was pretty invested in killing the Nazis. He recounted being an outsider because of his Judaism, and I could relate. Most importantly, he told me of liberating Bergen-Belsen concentration camp. He explained the atrocities he saw, and he told me what it felt like to liberate survivors and communicate with them that they were now free in Yiddish. At the end of our conversation, I asked him, "What is one thing you would like me to carry forward about your story?" I'll never forget his next remark. He looked at me and said, "You already have. Your existence is our legacy." In that moment, I learned what true resilience is, to face unimaginable horror and still see the beauty in life. So why should a Jew join and stay in the army? Because our history demands that we do not stand on the sidelines in times of trouble. Because our gratitude demands that we give back. Because our faith demands that we rise when the world calls for courage. And when I put on my uniform, I prove to the world that being Jewish is not only about survival, it's about service, honor, and the strength to defend what is right. This year, I challenge you twofold. First, open your Tanakh and read God's words. Even if your problems do not feel biblically proportioned, God will speak to you. You just have to choose to listen. I can attest, faith and the Jewish community have guided me through the toughest of times and even made me grateful for the experience. Second, do not think a veteran on Veterans Day. Instead, look at your own life. Don't just give money. Volunteer your time, your energy for just causes. Be honest with yourself. Are you really giving all you can for others? I implore you to honor our service and the service of veterans before me this year by serving others in your life. Thank you.
I promise I won't be as good as my wife. I want to start by saying thank you to Temple Emanu-El for having me. Thank you, Rabbi Davidson, for letting me speak. Thank you to Billy Medoff and the American Jewish Military Service Initiative for helping coordinate this. Thank you all for listening while I flap my gums. About 3 weeks ago, I was sitting on a C-27 aircraft and the rear ramp lowered. We looked out at the Colorado River, 12,000 feet below. I looked at my buddy and I screamed over the roar of the engines, "You know, there are only two types of people who jump out of airplanes: people who are scared and liars." Joining the military as a Jew is a lot like jumping out of an airplane. It can be scary at first, but it is incredibly rewarding and the thrill of a lifetime. And the real secret, at some point, the fear goes away and the thrill remains. As the son of two Jewish professionals, a rabbi and a Jewish educator, growing up, I lived in a Jewish bubble. I went to Jewish schools until I graduated high school. When I played baseball, my parents signed me up for the league that didn't play on Shabbat. When I wanted to do debate in high school, I participated in Moot Beit Din, where we parsed over legal cases in the Mishnah, or as I like to call it, Jewish mock trial. And of course, I went to Jewish summer camp. When I was in high school, I went through all of my Facebook friends. Of the 800 or so people I had ancillary connections with, I counted 9 non-Jews. Not even enough for a reverse minion. At 16, I decided I was going to join the Army. When I told my parents, they were skeptical to say the least. I guess they had said, "You can be whatever you want when you grow up, just one too many times," and it had gone to my head. My parents slowly came on board, but the Jewish community around me remained confused by my decision. While my path was certainly different compared to most with my background, it was also deeply in accordance with the values I had been learning my whole life. In Pirkei Avot, Rav Tarfon says, "Lo alecha ha-malacha ligmor, velo ata ben chorin libatel mimena." The work is not ours to finish, but we are not free to ignore it. Each Jew has a moral obligation to make the world a better place, but we also can't fix the whole thing ourselves. The secret I found to good tikkun olam, fixing the world, is to dedicate oneself to just a few spots. I just happened to pick a corner of the world where not many other Jews were working. I joined the army because I love and believe in a nation founded on an idea that it is marching on a slow, messy path towards making itself better. We are constantly fighting to make ourselves a more perfect union, even if we fall short often. We are a nation founded on a collective ethos of self-improvement. I joined the army because to me, that ethos manifests itself in each of us in the pursuit of the American dream. I joined the army because my grandfather, my Saba, found the American dream. When my great-grandmother Jessie wasn't safe as a Jew in the Pale of Settlements and had lived through pogrom after pogrom, she came here, to the Golden Country, the Golden Medina, as she called it, in search of a better life. Her son, my grandfather, grew up in the Bronx as the son of immigrants and graduated with a PhD from Harvard. I joined the army because I live in a nation where the son of a rabbi is commissioned into the army at the same rank as the son of a general. Those were the values that led me to pursue tikkun olam in uniform. That's why I joined the army, but like my wife, that's not why I stayed. I stayed for the people. Every single day, I walk into a workplace where I regularly see mundane feats of selflessness. Last weekend, I arrived home from training at midnight on a weekend, and my friend drove 2.5 hours round trip to pick me up without even a second thought. On countless rainy nights, I've shared a poncho with a friend when mine was leaking, or repaid him by giving him clean socks when all of his were wet. Each simple act of kindness is very Jewish to me. Because when you're starving, sharing your last bite of trail mix is a radical act of love. I live my Jewish values every day through the army values of loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. Gone are the days of the non-Jewish friends in single digits. Today, I'm the first Jew many people have met, and the only practicing Jew most of my coworkers know. This carries an additional weight, one that I see as a privilege rather than a burden. I grew up with easy access to kosher food, and now, to keep kosher, we plan out monthly trips to coordinate 2-hour round-trip drives for chicken. My kashrut always elicits curiosity from the multitude of non-Jews I interact with, who have never heard of keeping kosher before, but I find value in it. Each meal I eat is a reminder of the Jews who came before me, those who will come after me, and those all over the world who share my values. It is a blessing to share my culture and experiences with those around me and watch them transition from confusion to accommodation. When my team ordered 15 pepperoni pizzas and made sure to get a cheese pie just for me so that I could eat some, I felt happy. Not just because I wanted pizza, but because they had cared for me, and in doing so, demonstrated their understanding of a small slice of Judaism. In 2022, I spent Passover at the Army's Joint Readiness Training Center, a simulated combat scenario with over 4,000 soldiers. It is a massive war game fought with lasers instead of bullets across the swamps of Louisiana. There are guns, helicopters, tanks, artillery, poison ivy, and even alligators. But there isn't a lot of sleep. At key terrain or in key moments, the adjudicators of the exercise send film crews to document how a unit fought. On the 11th day of the exercise, Passover started. With the help of my chaplain and Judge Keith Friedman and the Jewish Soldiers Project, who makes care packages for Jewish service members, I had managed to lay away 15 Haggadot, 10 boxes of chocolate matzah, and 5 pounds of gefilte fish, which by my count is 5 pounds too many. When I hosted a Seder for the paratroopers across my brigade, 20 showed up. Most of them Jewish, some in solidarity, and maybe a few for the chocolate matzah. Just as if it was a major battle, they sent a film crew to document how we created community. After 10 days of ambushes in swamps and reconnaissance in monsoons, that was the moment I was the most proud of. I felt like I had opened the door for Elijah at the Seder, and a small Jewish community had walked in. It was my proudest moment of Hachnasat Orchim, welcoming guests. As a Jew in the army, I am a part of two very different communities. They do not have a lot of overlap in people, but a wide overlap in values. My parents raised me to understand the importance of serving my community, and it brings me great joy to live that value every day. Growing up, I would often hear people ask, "Are you a Jewish American or an American Jew?" implying that our religion or our country had to come first. I have always rejected that notion. These two identities live in concert within me. Thank you.
Thank you both so very, very much. We're so grateful for your presence tonight and, of course, for your life of dedication to our country.